The King's Prophet by MurderPrince. Chapter 1. In the Aftermath of the End. It wasn't that he was actually trying to drown. He just felt heavy, and it seemed easier to let his weight pull him forward than to hold himself up in the far too small tub of Blitz's far too small apartment. Blitz. He sighed as the bathroom door clicked shut. He was such a good man, willing to give up his life for that of his daughter, of his best friends, and for what? Stolas's mistakes. Stolas's failures. That simply wouldn't have done. Now he was here, alone in the bathroom, about to sleep on his once victim of manipulation's couch. Just another person Stolas had used and hurt with this everything. He shivered as the water began to chill, causing his feathers to stick up as goosebumps appeared on his skin. He reached out with a hand toward the towel that Blitz had left for him, expecting his magic to take hold, and floated over to him, only for nothing to happen. The towel stayed still in its folded place, and his hand shook slightly as he stared at it. Right. No magic. He gripped the edge of the tub tightly and pushed himself to standing, feeling like hardly a man inside this frail body anymore. He shook as he dried himself, just until he wasn't dripping any longer. He'd have hated to drip all over the apartment, then pulled the sweater that Luna left for him over his head before taking the towel to his head feathers once more, ruffling his feathers and leaving it there. His arms felt like lead as they dropped to his sides, and his feet, like cinder blocks, had been attached to them. Any energy he had left was gone now. He felt as though he could sleep for a year, or an eternity. Yes, that would be nice. Silent, warm sleep for the rest of time. He swung the door open and felt something pull him forward. Blitz stood from the couch and reached for his hands. Blitz's hands were warm and soft. Stolas stared at them. He knew these hands, or he used to. Would he hold them again? Would this be the last time? Blitz pulled on him softly, helping him settle down on the couch. That would be his bed, for tonight at least. At least he wasn't ousting Blitz from his own bed. He simply couldn't bear that. Couldn't imagine leeching any more off this man whom he loved so deeply. Already he'd invaded his home, his bath, his daughter's clothes, and what could he offer in return? Blitz pulled a soft throw blanket up from the side of the couch to rest it on Stolas's chest. "Thank you, Blitz," he murmured with the last bit of strength he had. "Thank you, Stolas, for saving my life." Right. At least he had done that. That was enough for today. He could feel the heavy fog of sleep coming to take him away. His eyes shifted away, feeling heavy just like the rest of his body. Always. Then it was dark, and the ever-sinking feeling in his gut finally eased as he fell into sleep's warm, easy hold. He woke to harsh light shining in his eyes and tried to roll away from it, only to be met with a cushioned but firm barrier. He cracked an eye open to see purple stripes. Where? His whole body ached, and not the pleasant after-sex ache when your legs felt like jello. No, this was deeper, in his bones, and it hurt like 1,000 tiny needles trying to leave his bones, but being met with the resistance of muscles and skin, not quite strong enough to break through, but persistent nonetheless. He groaned as quietly as he could, as he shifted, not wanting to wake Blitz and Luna from their respective rooms, only to find the man himself fast asleep on a beanbag chair just across the small room. Why in Lucifer's hell did he sleep on that? Was he trying to keep me company? This man. He glanced around the room, taking it in for the first time in the early light of day. It was small. He'd noticed it the night before, but now he could really see it. There were only 3 doors. The front door, where all the photos were. The ones with Blitz's face scribbled out in each one, which was far too familiar a feeling to analyze this early in the morning. The bathroom door he had come from last night, and another door that was clearly the door to Luna's bedroom based on the stickers and warning signs. Blitz didn't have a door. He didn't have a room, which meant he didn't have a bed, which meant that the only saving grace Stolas had felt from invading their home was gone. He had stolen Blitz's bed, relegated him to sleep on a beanbag in the corner of his own living room. He's such a good dad that he gave his daughter the only room. Meanwhile, I can't even be bothered to think about mine before I leave her behind. He couldn't stand looking at it any more. He stood quickly, too quickly if the way his head spun was any indication, and ran to the bathroom. He slammed the door shut behind him far louder than he intended, and winced as he knelt next to the toilet to empty the contents of his stomach. "Stolas?" A voice called from the other side of the door, still thick with sleep but laced with worry. I'm sorry, I'm... He gasped before another round of vomiting took hold of him. "Stolas, are you okay? Can I come in?" He took a shaky breath. "No, I'm fine." But it was too quiet. The doorknob was rattling. "I'm coming in." The door opened slowly, probably to avoid hitting him, and Blitz entered, still dressed in a white t-shirt and sweatpants. He glanced around the room before his eyes landed on Stolas, who ducked his head away in some sort of lame attempt to hide. "Stoles." His voice was so soft, so gentle that any hope Stolas had of keeping in the tears shattered at the sound of it. It started as a single sob which slipped into many more until they were racking his body violently. He felt Blitz kneel beside him, close the lid to the toilet, and pull his too long body into his own. He wrapped strong arms around the thin bird and ran a quiet hand over his head feathers. He said nothing, just held him as he cried until his sobs quieted into soft hiccups. "Come on, pretty bird, let's get off this floor. My knees aren't what they used to be." He laughed lightly. "I know your natural position is on your knees, but the tile ain't the place for it." Stolas wanted to laugh, but the best he could muster up was a slight smile as he allowed Blitz to pull him to standing. "Coffee or tea?" Blitz asked as he sat Stolas back down on the couch. "I'm fine." "I didn't ask if you were fine, Stoles. I asked if you'd rather coffee or tea in the morning." Blitz blinked at him, swallowed, and nodded. "Tea. I prefer tea." Blitz chuckled and shook his head as he walked toward the kitchen. Figures. Rich royals would like tea. He saw a flicker of something pass across Blitz's face after the comment, but he couldn't quite place what it was before it was gone again, and that natural confidence he so often wore had replaced it. Stolas followed him with his eyes, watching the ease with which he moved about in the kitchen. He filled the electric kettle that rested on the counter with water from the sink, then set it to boil. It lit up with a bright red glow as it worked, and Blitz moved to the cabinet to grab 2 mugs. The first was bright red, with a drawn horse on the side and the words, "Giddy up, bitches," written in cursive along the top. The other was a soft gray color, and more rounded in shape. It was lined along the base with pitch-black stars. Blitz popped a tea bag into each cup before looking back at Stolas. "Cream and sugar?" "Yes, please. Yes to both. Thank you." The kettle clicked, and he watched as Blitz poured the water over the tea bags, then left them to steep, while he went to fetch the milk and sugar. He scooped 2 large spoons of sugar into both mugs, then followed it with a splash of milk into the gray mug, and picked them both up and walked over to the couch. "Sugar and milk, 'cause I didn't have cream, but I can get some when I go back to Helmart. Milk is just fine, Blitz," he responded as he took the offered mug. Blitz sat down beside him, and the room fell into quiet, aside from the noises from the street below. "I do apologize," Stolas said softly. Blitz gave him a puzzled look, the same he'd given him at the trial, a slight tilt in his head and eyebrows furrowed ever so lightly. "For what?" "I put you out. I will make alternate arrangements for tonight. You needn't be without your bed. I've already invaded your home, your space, Luna's space. Blitz shook his head firmly, holding up a hand to cut him off. "Stolas, you're not invading. You were invited. And I slept just fine on the beanbag, bird brain. I could sleep on a rock and sleep just fine. No, I at least insist you take the couch back. I can make myself a bed on the floor beside it." Blitz sighed. "Listen, I get what you're trying to do and how you're feeling, but I don't think you quite understand the realities of sleeping on the floor, especially after you've only slept on a prince bird-sized bed before. Let me give you the couch, Stolas. It makes... Just take the damn couch. Please." Stolas sighed. He knew a losing battle when he heard one. "I need to. His eyes widened as he looked up at Blitz again. "I need to see Via." "Yeah, you do, but I'm not sure." Stolas stood up quickly. He moved to the kitchen and set down the half-empty mug in the sink, then glanced around. He raised his hands up in front of him, touching them together before sliding them apart through the air, but no portal appeared before him. His beak fell open as he inhaled sharply. "I can't do anything. I can't even get to her." "We can get a taxi or a Sinsber," Blitz offered, reaching into a drawer and pulling out a clean set of his work outfit. The door to Luna's room creaked open, and the hellhound stood in the doorway, rubbing at her face with a groan. "You're going to see Via like that?" was the first remark she made, and Stolas looked down at himself. The sweater had slid off one of his shoulders, and it was wrinkled from sleep. Right. Come here. I got a top that'll probably fit you." Blitz knew that he could have portaled them right to the palace, but he also knew that he needed time to think of some sort of plan, some sort of something. Plus, he wasn't sure he wanted to be using the crystal for anything that wasn't strictly business right now. While Luna gave Stolas something to wear, Blitz set about ordering their ride. He grabbed a few weapons from the stash under the couch before his phone pinged to alert him that their ride had arrived. "Stolas! Sinsber's waiting outside." The door to Luna's room opened slowly, and Stolas strode out. He wore a deep red turtleneck with a chest cut out that was just a hair tighter than he would have liked, and a few of his chest feathers poked out of it, as well as a pair of leggings that he cuffed to the end before his talons began. He'd done his best to smooth out his head feathers, but he couldn't hide the dark circles under his eyes. "Do I look all right?" he asked, when Blitz did nothing but stare at him. You," Luna scoffed from behind him. "What he means to say is, yeah, you look hot." He glanced down at himself. Hot was not what he felt right now, though he supposed it was better than how he did feel, being disheveled or powerless, so it was an improvement. "Let us get going, then?" Blitz blinked and nodded, leading the way out of the apartment. The ride was quiet and long, apparently. He hadn't realized just how far from Imp City the palace was by car. He glanced over at Blitz, who was scrolling through his emails. Blitz had made this drive each full moon and hadn't even complained about the distance. He fidgeted in his seat, pressing himself against the glass. Well, that's a stupid question, but Blitz sighed. "Something wrong that I can actually help with." Stolas offered him what he hoped was a soft smile, but really looked closer to a sad one and shook his head. "I worry what she thinks, what Stella and Andreolphus have told her." He wrung his hands together nervously as he spoke, then slid them up to rub at his arms, careful not to let himself pull at any of the feathers on his forearms. "Bunch of bullshit, and you'll tell her the truth. If she will even speak to me. If I can even enter the grounds any longer." Blitz sighed and reached a hand across the cab to Stolas, gently taking his delicate talon and interlacing their fingers. "Whatever happens, I will be there with you. Via's a smart kid. She's not going to listen to the garbage those icy pricks spew." "She will. Stella has a way of making you believe her words, even when you know how she is. She's very talented at cruelty and lies." Stolas pressed his face into the glass. He could feel Blitz shifting, wanting to ask him something, wanting more information from him, but he truly hoped he didn't. He couldn't handle those questions right now. "She'll think I abandoned her. I never came home yesterday. I didn't even inform her I was leaving. Perhaps—" "Nope." He sat up to look at Blitz, who was giving him a firm, confident look. "Ain't no world in which Via would be better off with that nasty cunt and her frigid fuckface of a brother." "Blitz, I have nothing to offer her. I can't take care of her like this. I can't even take care of myself. I don't know the first thing about anything, and I don't even have my powers. I'm just useless." Blitz growled low in his throat and opened his mouth, but didn't get the chance to respond as the Sinsber stopped in front of the palace gates. Stolas inhaled sharply. The entire building, normally a maroon color at this time of the day, was ice blue and covered in snow. "Shit," he heard from beside him. "Hey, ride's over, bitches, get out." He heard Blitz murmur something along the lines of, "Should have just used the damn crystal," as he opened the door and got out of the car. Stolas followed close behind him, anxiety building with each step he took toward his home. Though he supposed it wasn't his home anymore. Certainly not like this. Frozen over, devoid of all life and color, any and all warmth that had once been sucked out by the blue tones at every corner. Would Via be cold there? Come on, Stoles. Right, yes, Stoles. Hadn't he called him that earlier, too? Blitz led the way up the path and through the gates, which really were far easier to get through than they should have been. Not that he could do anything about it now. Had she been in danger all this time with him? Had it always been this easy to get onto the grounds of his home? As he walked up towards the front steps, he couldn't help but glance around the grounds. Everything was truly dead. Each flower and bush, all his plants that he'd spent the last 20-some-odd years cultivating and caring for, just frozen. Some had even crumbled under the pressure of the ice, so frail they simply snapped. Is that what would happen to him Would this new-found self simply crumble under the pressure? Would he freeze solid and snap in two, or perhaps he would break apart into a million tiny pieces, far too many to ever mend together, even if he should thaw? The front doors slammed open, and Stola watched as Stella emerged from the palace to sneer down at him. The gown she wore was even more exorbitant than usual. It glittered like the fabric itself had been woven with tiny ice crystals. Not even a day after his removal, and she was already seating herself upon their daughter's throne. "You are not welcome here, Stolas." "I wish to speak with Via," he said, voice as firm as he could make it. He felt Blitz take his hand and give it a comforting squeeze. "I want nothing else from you but to speak with her. I need to explain." Stella smirked. "I've already explained it to her just fine." Stolas's shoulders dropped. "Please, Stella, just let me speak with her. Just ask her if I—" "She wants nothing to do with you." He squeezed his eyes shut, then took a few more steps forward, stopping at the base of the stairs. His muscles ached still, but he pushed through the feeling. His heart sunk, and he hung his head before he spoke again quietly. "Please, I beg you." She laughed victoriously, and he winced. "I do love it when you beg, Stolas." He could hear Blitz growling beside him, but he squeezed his hand. He needed to do this. This would be the only way that they would let him see her. If he played into her hand, let her humiliate him, let her bring him lower, maybe she would relent. "Fine. I will see if she wishes to hear from you." She squinted and took 2 steps closer to him and whispered, "Just to watch as she finally rejects you once she sees just how pathetic and worthless you truly are." Then she spun around and marched inside, slamming the door behind her and leaving them out in the cold. Stolas shivered in his place but didn't dare move closer or back away. "You are not pathetic or worthless." The words from beside him were firm and filled with unbridled fury as Blitz practically shook with rage. As he turned to look at him, Stolas wished he could believe it. Wished even that he could believe that Blitz believed them, but the truth of the matter was that he was worthless. He currently served 0 purpose in the hierarchy of hell. Once upon a time, well, yesterday morning, he had. He'd been a favored prophet to the king. He'd been a teacher and a reader of the stars, one of the best, or so he'd been told, and most importantly, he'd been a father. Today he was nothing. Not anymore. Not to even mention how pathetic he certainly was. The doors creaked back open before he could explore that thought any further, and Stolas stumbled forward faster than his legs were prepared to carry him as soon as he saw the black fringe of his daughter's cardigan. He tripped on the 3rd step in his haste and felt a steadying hand on his back as he righted himself. "You got this," Blitz whispered as he gave him a gentle nudge forward. He looked up at her. He'd seen her only yesterday, and yet somehow she looked so different. She held her head high, tilted away from him, but her eyes were glancing at him every now and again as he hesitated. "Via, I'm glad you're not dead." He inhaled. "What did your mother—" She twisted her head toward him harshly, and he winced. "Mum didn't tell me anything. I watched it myself." She took a firm step toward him, and he looked down at his feet. He could feel his breathing and heartbeat picking up. "I watched as you stood up to the sins and lied for him. Gave up yourself for him. Chose him over me. Just like always." He snapped his head up to look at her, reaching out for her only for her to pull away from him. "No, Via, that's not what—" "Oh? You weren't planning on dying then? Didn't lay your head on the executioner's block? Was all that some sort of trick? No, you were just fine to leave me here. Well, fine. Here I am, and there you are, with him. Blitz, he was going to be killed. The accusations weren't... But he did use your grimoire. That is illegal. He did break into our home and try to steal it. But that isn't... She's always been right about you. I really thought you loved me, but I guess I was wrong about that. You never loved Mother, and you don't love me. You love him. Via, I believe the girl is done with your visit now, Stolas. When the fuck had that asshole appeared? The icy bird was looming behind Octavia, his arms folded over his chest smugly as he smirked down at Stolas. Stolas ignored the sarcastic tone from his ex-brother-in-law as he reached for his daughter yet again, but she pulled back and this time let her uncle step in front of her. Via, wait, let me explain. You've said enough. Now, I believe you're trespassing on my property, Stolas. A sharp wave of icy magic ripped around him, and he felt himself go flying back down the stairs, landing hard on his back. He blinked a few times, trying to catch his breath, and reached a hand to the back of his head to cradle where it had hit the ground. From the corner of his eye he watched as Via slipped inside the palace and let the door slide shut behind her. "Stolas, you okay?" he heard Blitz shout as he ran toward him from his place, still at the base of the stairs. He scrambled to his feet and ran back toward the steps, toward her. Spikes of ice shot up from the ground all around him, blocking his every path and creating a maze between him and Blitz. "Andre Alphys, please! She is my daughter!" he cried as he rounded another ice shard, only to be knocked back by a large slab of ice shooting up right before him. "Stolas!" Blitz sounded far away, echoey like his voice was bouncing off the ice walls. Before he could get back to his feet, all the ice spikes vanished, aside from the one blocking the steps. In the now clear courtyard, Stolas could see Blitz across the pavers, sprinting toward him at full speed, and Andre Alphys hovering, rising up before him only 10 feet away. His feathers fanned out behind him and grew as his magic swirled around him. Ice-cold winds whipped against his feathers, and tiny pieces of snow and ice pelted into him. "I could kill you right here. You are disgraced. They wouldn't mind too much. After all, I was defending myself from the villainous traitor who tried to kidnap my sweet niece from her own home." He held up his hand, and in it formed a large icicle. He pulled his arm back, and Stolas squeezed his eyes tightly shut. Weak. Pathetic. Worthless. "Back off, fuckface!" Stolas's eyes slammed open as he felt Blitz slide into place beside him. A hand rested on his shoulder, pulling him close, and the other held out before them with a large black blade. The magical ice sprayed at them in a million tiny shards a moment later, and Stolas felt 1,000 stings at once as they hit his skin. "Oh yeah? Gonna kill all of Impkind's new favorite person just a day after they made history by letting me live?" Blitz asked as he wiped a drip of blood off his cheek and flicked it off to the side. The single drop landed in a pile of snow, coloring a perfect circle, bright black, surrounded by stark white. Stolas glanced up at him as he clung to the lower half of his body. The light seemed to be bouncing off all the ice and gleaming perfectly on him. His stance was strong and brave despite the clearly powerful demon before him. His knight in shining leather? Andre Alphys rolled his eyes. "Fine, get out." He sunk back to the pavement, and the spikes of ice settled slightly as he walked toward them. "If I see you on my property again, Stolas, I will see to it that your 100-year banishment becomes a permanent one." Stolas glared. "I'm sure you're seeing to that already, Marquis." Blitz took that as his cue. He pulled Stolas up and began taking careful steps backward, not taking his eyes off the peacock before him. "Let's get out of here, Feathers. We can talk to Via again without these fuckwads." "Banishment becomes a permanent one." Stolas glared. "I'm sure you're seeing to that already, Marquis." Blitz took that as his cue. He pulled Stolas up and began taking careful steps backward, not taking his eyes off the peacock before him. "Let's get out of here, Feathers. We can talk to Via again without these fuckwads." Stolas nodded. He felt Blitz's hand leave his side as he rubbed at the crystal on his wrist, and a portal opened up behind them. Blitz took the first step in, not lowering the knife he had pointed at the peacock, and held out a hand for Stolas to take, helping him up and then leading him through the portal before shutting it behind them. "No Via, huh?" Luna's voice asked from her open bedroom door. That seemed to be the last straw. Stolas's face crumbled, and he dropped back to his knees, head falling into his waiting hands, and sobbed. "Whoops." Blitz had held him as he sobbed on the floor for nearly 30 minutes before insisting that they at least move to the couch to continue the mess of feelings that did not seem to be stopping any time soon. Not that he blamed the bird. That was rough, to say the least, and not in a good way. When he thought back on the plan of action that they'd taken, it was not his best. He should not have brought Stolas over there a single day later. They should have tried to contact Via literally any other way first, warn her, explain to her, but it had been the heat of the moment. The desperation that Stolas's face had held. He knew that feeling. Being right on the brink of losing something, someone that mattered more to you than anyone in the world. Yeah, he knew that feeling far too well. "Come on, Birdie. We will figure this out, I promise." You can't promise that, Blitz. I wish that you could, but you can't." Blitz sighed. "No, you're right. I can't promise that it's going to be fine, or work out, or get fixed right away. But I can tell you some things that I do know. I know that you love that girl more than anything in the world. And I know that feeling. So I know you're not going to stop fighting for her just 'cause some prick in an Elsa cosplay said so. She hates me, Blitz. She thinks I left her. I did leave her." Blitz rubbed at his back. "You didn't leave her. You came to save me. Those aren't the same thing, and she'll see that eventually. You just gotta give her some time. Yesterday was a lot, and not just for us. She watched you almost die. She's scared. Prove her wrong. Let her see you live." Stolas was quiet, too quiet in response. "Stoles, please say something. I need to know you heard me." "I heard you." Blitz nodded and pulled the bird closer to his chest, letting him rest against him. "Feel my heart in there." He felt Stolas nod against him slightly. "It's you." Stolas pulled back to blink up at him owlishly. "You're my heart, Stolas. I need you to keep beating."